Okay, everybody, hello. Um, Hello from Dnipro. The weather is bright and sunny today, and it makes me a little bit happier, as well as the topic of today's webinar, because this term I have four groups of elementary or zero level grammar, and the topic is very up to date for me. So, well, the topic is drilling, and I'd like to ask a first question. In your opinion, what drilling is? I'd like you to type your definitions of very just in a few words. What is drilling? I see chart, but I can't see anyone. Okay. So unfortunately, I cannot see the answers, but uh, well, I'm going to share my screen with you, and um, I want to show you my presentation, and we'll start with uh, with the definition of drilling. So drill is well, first of all, drill is a technique which is used to practice new language. It involves the teacher modeling a word or a sentence, and um, it involves teacher modeling a word or a sentence and the learners repeating it. So I'd like to say that it was a key feature of audiolingual approach to language, which placed emphasis on repeating structural patterns through oral practice. And it was thought that repeating phrases correctly lots of times would lead to mastery of language. But nowadays we know that learning language is far more like complex and creative process, and it's not just a list of structures to be memorized. So and an approach based mainly on the language drills will not be very popular today. So however, drilling is very very successful, useful technique in the classroom if it is used appropriately. So the first that's definition, I would like to ask to tell you some like defining features, the main points of drilling. So it is like in all drills, learners have no or very little choice of what is said. So we can say that drills are a form of very controlled practice. There is one correct answer, and the main focus is on getting it right. So the focus is on accuracy. Drills are usually conducted chorally, in other words, the whole class repeats and then individually. There is also the possibility of groups of students doing the language drills together. So the next, what I would like to say that the drills have a lot of benefits, and let's look at them. The first one, it provides, as I've already said, this provides for a focus on accuracy. Uh, so along with increased fluency and complexity, it is the way in which learners language improves. So there is need in this technique, and we can apply it at different stages of the lesson during certain task types. It provides with intensive practice of hearing and saying particular words or phrases. They can help learners get their tongues around difficult sounds or help them imitate intonation that may be rather different from that of their first language. That it also drills also provide safe environment because learners are not afraid to experiment with a new language. This may help build confidence, particularly among those students who are not risk takers and are afraid of making mistakes. So it also drills also help to notice the correct form of pronunciation, which is an important stage in developing language competence. So It also provides an opportunity to get immediate feedback on the accuracy in terms of teacher or peer correction, and you know that many learners really want to be corrected. Uh, it also helps memorization and amortization of common language patterns and some language chunks. Uh-huh. I'll try to be louder. Yeah. Just a second. I just understood that not everyone can hear well. Uh-huh. I hope it's going to be better. Tell me. Mhm. We stopped. Mm. Okay. Yes. And it also meets students' expectations. They may think that drilling is an essential part of uh, the essential part of the lesson. So, the next what I would like to talk about is what to drill. Sorry. So, and I'd like to hear or to see some of your ideas. What do you think is what should we drill? What must we drill it during the lesson? Okay. I can't. Again. I I'd like to see the chart, but I cannot see the chart. I cannot see the answers. Are you here? So what should we drill? Any answers? Mhm. Okay. Functional language. Okay. Grammar. Contractions. Yes. Thank you very much. Actually, yes. You should drill everything, almost everything. And mhm, here, my presentation again. Um, well, and vocabulary. You should drill vocabulary or chunks of language that cause pronunciation problems at all levels. The sounds of English that either do not exist in the first language or occur differently at lower levels. The consonant clusters and weak forms at all levels. For example, such words as vegetables or comfortable, intonation, stress, and weak forms at the phrase level, and this may be useful at upper levels as well. So, for example, such sentences, if I didn't know you were coming, I would have stayed at home. So, you see the sentence, like the structure is conditional, so it's good for upper levels as well. So intonation patterns that are crucial to meaning. For example, tag questions. Either we ask for confirmation or it's really a genuine question. Uh, it helps to understand. Or expressions like, you could have told me it was his birthday, as a showing rebuke. And as you said, yeah, grammar forms, endings, questions, contractions, um, different tense forms, whatever. So, and I'd like to stop a little bit at types of drills. The first one, which I'm sure everyone in their teaching career has used at least once, this is repetition drills, the most classical one. And in terms of who repeats, it can vary, and it has several subtypes. Yeah, when the whole class repeats, when half of the class repeats, boys only, girls only, individuals. If your class is too loud, you can offer them some whisper drills. If your class is too quiet and you want to liven them up, you can offer them some shouting drills with different emotions, with different facial expressions, with uh, physical movements. Well, they will also make your drilling more interesting and will like vary the ways you drill. So this all these tricks can be like repeating together or one by one can be used to can be applied to all the other types of drills you'll see later. So the next one is substitution drill, and here I'd like to show you some examples. Here I have two examples. The first one is a grammar drill, very simple one in present simple, when the teacher asks a question like what do you have in your bag, and every time the students repeat, the teacher gives a new subject for this question, changing the person, like you, what do you have in your bag? He, what does he have in his bag? They, what do they have in their bag? And so on. So every time the students should change the subject, and they should change the auxiliary verb in the question. So it's a kind of meaningful drill. And the next one here is example of vocabulary drill. Also, the topic is food, as you see, and it's good at lower levels. Here the teacher offers a picture, flashcard, or shows on the board, or the teacher can even just say the word. For example, chicken, and the sentence is, his favorite food is chicken. Teacher holds up a pizza flashcard, and students say his favorite food is pizza. The teacher holds up chocolate flashcard, and the students say his favorite food is chocolate. So we return back to types of drills, and the next type is transformation drill. Transformation drill is good for all levels, not just lower. Here is the simple example of such a drill when the teacher offers an affirmative sentence and students need to turn it to transform it into a question. So the book is new. Is the book new? We are in the class. Are we in the class? So in the same way, the students can make the sentence negative or positive or question, etc. And also at revision classes, I offer my students sometimes to do this kind of drill with tenses. When I give one sentence appropriate for all tenses, yeah, and they need to change it into tenses like future, past, present perfect, just to drill the form, not the usage or meaning. Uh, well, transformation drill here. The next type is back chaining, also good for upper levels as well as for lower levels. Uh, it's good with long phrases, functional language, which consists of like some long phrase, and the teacher starts from the back, yeah, and adds every time one more word or one more phrase with preposition or something. So here we have if only I'd known. So the teacher start known, then the learners repeat I'd known, and then they repeat if only I'd known, and so increasing every time. And they practice pronunciation and and intonation, and it's particularly useful to help learners pronounce weak or intrusive sounds, and in addition, helps learners say difficult phrases, and it's also fun to start to do this. Uh, Here, the next type is split drills. Actually, when the longer phrase or sentence is split between students. So one word, one phrase per student. And when they work together and they work as a team, they get the phrase correctly. So the intonation should be right, the pronunciation should be right, and the success of this activity depends on each member of team. The next one is guessing game. This one is particularly good for lower levels when the teacher offers some object in a bag, or in a box, and the student's task is to guess what is inside, asking, is it big, is it small, is it made of plastic, is it, I don't know, round, and whatever. It's also good for spot the difference task, when they have two pictures which are almost the same and they need to find the difference using structures as is there something in your room, or are there some things in your picture. Also good with prepositions of place when one person hides something in the picture and the others need to ask a question like if their chair, or for example if you take furniture, is there a chair between the table and the wall, and so on. So any activity where they need to guess something. um, Next one is the disappearing text, and this one is good for upper levels as well, and for lower ones you can have an example here. You can use a list of vocabulary or a list of functional language or a short text on the board. The teacher reads it and drills like as a repetition drill, and then the next stage is rubbing off small parts of this text or this list, and students need to produce it. They need to say the whole text again using appropriate sounds, using appropriate intonation. And gradually, the teacher rubs off all the some like more and more bits of information, and each time students need to say the whole text again. So in the end, they will say it correctly. They will surely remember this text or phrase. Well, the next type of the drill is dialogue building, and here also appropriate for lower levels and upper levels. Here is example of one. The teacher elicits the dialogue and like showing some pictures. Here I have a picture of cat and a question mark. So we ask him about cat. Have you got a pet? Yes, I've got a cat. So what's its name? It's called Fred. But while eliciting, the teacher doesn't write the whole sentence, but just the prompts like this: have, pet, yes, name, and Fred. Yeah. So students look at it. They try to remember and to recollect what was the initial sentence, and they reproduce the dialogue line by line, and then they practice in pairs. And as an extension of this task, the students may make dialogues using different animals, yeah, as a pet, or similar dialogue asking about some other information, not just the name of the cat. And at upper levels, it's also possible if it's functional language. Well, and here the next one also I'm sure was used by many teachers and is used regularly. These are mingling activities, which will help to make the class more dynamic and wake the students up. So here, one of the most famous one is find someone who. They need to ask the same questions many times and many students, and hear lots of various pronunciations of different people, and correct each other if necessary, and drill some grammar form or some vocabulary. And here I wrote say and swap. Yeah, this one can be used like with a functional language or vocabulary when some piece of language is written on a piece of paper, and one paper per student is given, and students are mingling, and they need to pronounce the phrase correctly using correct intonation and pronunciation. And as soon as they have finished, they swap the papers. So during this activity, the students repeat not just one phrase many times, but each time they take a new one and they hear other people pronouncing this phrase. And during this activity, it's a good idea to use some kind of exaggerated intonation, or um, whispering, or maybe change even like showing different emotions. And during the activity, you can change this several times to make it more interesting for people. And the next one is information gaps, also for different levels can be used. The example is here for lower levels, and I'm sure the teachers who have elementary and zero level classes, they will recognize activity which is in our books. um, and this actually is a drill, and you can vary it, you can transform it and use it appropriately in your classes and for different purposes. Here is example of the students are given the shopping list of fruit they need to buy, like for example 6 oranges, 1 kilo of apples, and so on. And students A and B, they have different like prices for different products, and they have to ask each other and answer uh, about prices and complete the grid with the correct information. The task is at the end to decide which shop will be the cheaper for them to buy their fruit in it. So it can be used like it's a meaningful task. They collect some information. They have an aim of activity, not just repeat. But during the activity, they repeat many times how much does it cost, or any other questions which are necessary to complete the activity. Well, we return back, and the last one here is a songs and rhymes and chants. I'm sure that some of you already use Jan chants and grammar chants, the book which is designed for this, yeah, and you can read how to use it, how to use the rhythm of these chants. And if your students are not willing to sing or are very shy here, you can offer them to compose their own rap songs using some vocabulary or functional language, or use such a game as Simon Says, which, by the way, is popular not only at lower levels, but well, I used it at the third level intermediate some days, and they like it in the middle of the lesson to like to wake up, to move a little bit, and together with total physical response, it's very successful, and they try to do the task very well. And especially you can delegate the role of a leading person, yeah, of a presenter to one of the students, and it will be it will be nice. So in general, I believe that if like mm, that the success of using rhymes and chants and so on at your lessons depends like on you very much, because if you really like it and you really present it to your students in a good way, they will also like it. So the next I'd like to ask you a question. So we've discussed different types, and now I want to ask you when to drill. When should we use drilling? Which stage of the lesson is it appropriate? Hmm? Okay. Well, so again, unfortunately, well, cannot see the answers, but now I see some. Well, okay, background what? Practice. So what parts of the lesson? So the stage of the lesson. For drills to be meaningful, the learners need to understand what they are being asked to say. And you know that monotonous chanting and without context, it like drilling is not useful to anyone. And this means that work on the meaning of the language must come before drilling. Drilling can be comfortably and effectively incorporated in many types of lessons. If you use whether you use a PPP model or a task-based approach, for example. So the first should be meaning. So, and we can say that drilling may follow a language focus stage, particularly if you are dealing with spoken language. So you present material and you drill it. But sometimes it may be too much, and like for students to to do it right now, and so you may want to introduce drilling later for the purpose, like for remedial purposes. to correct their mistakes during practice. And you may do it after a fluency task as a correction strategy as well. So after presentation, during practice, and as a correction strategy at the end of the lesson. So that is like generally mainly all information about drills, and I wanted to make some conclusion that drills should be used appropriately, and it's though it's not a new and fashionable classroom technique, used in a good way, it can be of great value to our learners. And you should drill only the language that will benefit from being drilled, not all the language. For example, if it causes pronunciation problems or if it is a useful chunk of language to be memorized, and not too much. Yeah, you shouldn't drill too much, not all the lesson, and keep drilling stages lively, interesting for people. And you, they should drill should respond to the needs of language learners. If you think that they will increase their pronunciation or memorize, it will help them to memorize the word or like practice some forms. And you should, of course, vary the way in which you do the drills to help make this language memorable. Don't be shy to use different methods to liven them up, like different emotions, whispering, different pair work, group work, and so on. Well, here I've made some useful links for you. The first four, I based my presentation on them, so you can just read if you wish. And the last two, this is video where you can watch how the drilling looks like in real life and see it like visually. Well, and mm, that's it. And if you have any questions, I'd like you to ask if you have any questions. Well, so if you do not have any questions, yes, I see. Then I wish you to have a nice day and enjoy your lessons, and don't forget to drill during your lessons. Have a nice day. Bye.